The G7 summit can be summed up as a complete failure, and this failure can be attributed to foreign interests outside the G7 assembly, the involvement of NGOs, and most importantly, the ignorance of leaders and their poorly thought out statements.
Well, I'm very happy that there are strong common grounds because Germany is generous towards the developing world. It analyzes the problems and seeks solutions very much in the same direction as we are ourselves. We, I think, have had good partnerships and they are growing. They're covering more and more fields, including culture, which is a new resource now. At least I think so. So that's where we're working together. And through Germany, we're also working with the European Union.
And today, I'm thrilled to announce that Canada, along with the European Union, Germany, Japan, the United Kingdom, France, and the World Bank, will invest nearly $4 billion to support quality education for women and girls living in crisis, conflict-affected, and fragile states. This funding represents the single largest investment of its kind.
At first glance, the G7 communique seems like a great idea. Who doesn't want better education that is relevant to the job market, female social and occupational inclusion, world peace, and even a cleaner environment? It sounds more like an answer for a Miss America pageant. But in all honesty, the issue isn't the pursuit, but rather the intent. This money will never see the realization of said goals, but rather it will become nothing more than personal wealth, laundered through an array of NGOs and not-for-profit organizations. Haiti and South Africa are perfect illustrations of how such resources are applied, which leads us to ask, who is the puppet master?
We actually delivered almost $4 billion for women and girls in crisis and conflict-affected areas to help with their education, their health, their security, which is, quite frankly, the number one recommendation that not only the Gender Advisory Council we put together that did extraordinary work put forward, but also civil society in the past few days has been calling upon me directly to deliver $1.3 billion for girls in crisis and conflict-affected areas. But we did better than that. We did $3.8 billion.
People suggest that there's been a movement away in terms of real leadership from governments to almost private foundations, philanthropic organizations, yours being one. The Gates Foundation, and you can name a number, Bono, the singer. Do you see that happening? Is that a good thing?
I see it happening and I welcome it wholeheartedly. Because what we're talking about, I think, is accelerating the construction of civil society. And I personally think that civil society is one of the most urgent things to build around the world.
A lot of NGOs and foundations that are also part of this movement. Oftentimes, developing nations, including small island states, are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of a changing climate. G7 nations have a role to play in helping these countries mitigate the consequences of and join the fight against climate change, which goes hand in hand with the health of our coasts and oceans. As part of this initiative, Canada will invest $162 million to help build strong and resilient coasts and communities. This will include efforts to build back better after extreme weather events and to help expand renewable energy infrastructure. Our approach of respecting rights and freedoms and encouraging individual success while we ensure collective responsibility for each other.
That shared responsibility that we all have towards our citizens and towards future generations.
What citizens are you talking about? Your global citizens or your domestic population? This needs to be asked, as there is no mention of any strategy or attempts to address domestic issue. It's funny and sad that Trudeau expresses a responsibility for Canadians, but refuses veterans' aid on the grounds that they are asking for too much. Yet there is all this domestic value being deported abroad.
that the United States has moved forward with significant tariffs on our steel and aluminum industry, particularly did not take lightly the fact that it's based on a national security reason that for Canadians who either themselves or whose parents or community members have stood shoulder to shoulder with American soldiers in far-off lands and conflicts from the First World War onwards, that it's kind of insulting. And I highlighted that it was not helping in our renegotiation of NAFTA, and that it would be with regret, but it would be with absolute certainty and firmness that we move forward with retaliatory measures on July 1st, applying equivalent tariffs to the ones that the Americans have unjustly applied to us. I have made it very clear to the President that it is not something we relish doing, but it is something that we absolutely will do, because Canadians were polite, we're reasonable, but we also will not be pushed around.
Apparently, Canadians will not be pushed around by patriots like Trump, but they will give all their national resources to a globalist Islamic totalitarian. I think it's becoming clear, and very concerning, that the Aga Khan, a totalitarian, is a puppeteer, so much that this summit can be reduced to nothing more than an investment group, not investing in the vision of the future, but rather an NGO, and can be best summarized as democracy versus totalitarianism, or better yet, freedom versus control. Check out our video on South Africa in order to understand the totalitarian goals of the Aga Khan and how he is attempting to convert the free world into the controlled. Like, share, and subscribe. Click that notification button and check us out on social media. Links are in the description below.